Konrad Adenauer, also a member of the Pan-European movement, once said, "Europe doesn't grow because of the treaties. It grows from the heart of the citizens or is doomed to failure." So the citizens are important, very important. I'm sure that also our next panelists do keep that in mind. Namely, they are elected by the EU citizens. Please welcome 3 members of the European Parliament. Mr. Ivo Vajgl, also former Minister of the Foreign Affairs of Slovenia. Mrs. Tanja Fajon from Slovenia. And Mr. Davor Ivor Stier from Croatia. And the panel will be moderated. You already know him. He already introduced himself yesterday by the former Vice President of the European Commission, Mr. Franco Frattini.
Thank you. Thanks.
I will just remind you that the floor is yours until 6 p.m. the latest, because the dinner will be served 6:15.
That's important.
Very good. Somebody will warn me at the time. Okay. Thank you very much and good afternoon. Thanks for this introduction. I welcome this opportunity to be together with 3 members of European Parliament. Ivo was foreign minister when I was foreign minister. We have been working together in our capacity. The 2 other members of Parliament, Mr. Stier, a newcomer to the European Parliament, when we welcome Croatia as the new member of our family, and of course, Mrs. Fajon is member of the Parliament for Slovenia. This panel talks about European Parliament role and citizens. I have some points for our speakers, and then, if you allow me, I'll put some questions for you. My first point is a very important one. We are approaching the time of European elections. This is a key time to take again into consideration the new role of European Parliament in the next legislature. This will be a stronger role. You know, of course, that the Parliament will have a stronger say on all the legislative initiatives undertaken by the Council and the European Commission, but I think the most important responsibility the new European Parliament elected at the end of May will have will be to vote for the European election. In the past, there used to be a designation and the Parliament had no full power to elect the Commission, while now, under the Treaty of Lisbon, the Parliament will be I would say, the final judge of the good choice, the good proposals made by national governments in appointing national commissioners, and the Council and the political families, because we are talking about the responsibility of the political families to indicate a president of European Commission. But the final decision will be taken by the Parliament. This is quite important reform that without changing, without integrating, but simply by implementing Lisbon Treaty would try to reconnect European citizens with European institutions. Why? Because you know, all the main political families, including the political families that you represent, Liberals, EPP, and Socialists, will very soon indicate their respective candidates. And this is the first time that the political family indicates, dear voters, if you will vote for my political family, for my party, you have to know now that my proposal for the presidency is that or that leader. This is a good exercise of transparency for the first time on the election of European institutions. The second point is how to, exactly because sometimes we note a growing disaffection from the European citizens to the European institutions, to the European machinery. Having been for 4 years Vice President of the European Commission, but also for 6 years Foreign Minister of my country, Italy, I can understand that quite often this disaffection is justified, sadly, because people don't know anything about what happens around the table where the Commission meets every Wednesday, every week. Nothing. And of course, if you want to try to reconnect, the other point is how the European Parliament can contribute to make, I would say, full transparency in the political processes. This is very important. Full transparency is the first step to give European institutions full legitimacy, full democratic legitimacy. I myself, I'm a partisan of the direct election one day of the President of the European Commission. I'm pragmatic. I understand this will not happen overnight. We will have to change the treaties. It is very difficult to think about reopening a Pandora's box of the treaties, but please try to implement in full what is possible to do under the current treaties. So how can the European Parliament contribute to this need of transparency in the political processes? Then, what are the main challenges ahead of us when we will have the electoral campaign starting very soon, I think in March, April, after the congresses of the main political parties. One of these will take place in Rome next week. The socialists will meet in Rome. Other will meet in Dublin or elsewhere. But after that, what is the main political challenge? And what is the challenge for pro-European political families that will sit at the European Parliament? Here, there is a point that I would summarize very bluntly, if you agree. The idea itself of Europe, it's at stake. It's not only Eurozone, which is under threat. It's not only banking union, which is questioned. It's the idea itself of having a process of European integration going ahead. So the political fight will be, very frankly, between those that are populist and Eurosceptics and those that, while keeping differences in the party's policies, will have a common denominator to be in favor of more European integration. And this is the common denominator that unites all the political families that you, honorable members, represent here. The Liberals, sure. EPP, absolutely clear. Socialists and Democrats, for sure. So, how is the possibility to make a political alliance in the name of keeping the idea of Europe alive? I'm aware that the political families have different points of view, but populists have only one point of view: destroy the process of political integration. Is it possible to have a political alliance while keeping differences because it's the idea of Europe which is at stake? This is my second point. And the third point is, as I said briefly yesterday, sometimes European citizens, exactly those that are reluctant, that don't understand anything about European machinery, run the risk to take for granted the European integration and all the achievements we have thanks to the European integration. Think about the single market, think about the freedom of movement, think about the idea of having very soon a common monitoring mechanism on the national banks to the benefit of transparency for the consumers. All this is taken for granted. So one point that I would like to see emerging in that discussion is: how is, in your view, the cost of not having Europe? Not the cost of Europe. Somebody is saying, is blaming Europe for this or that. Let's talk about the situation when Europe integration stops. How is the perspective for your families in the future? Is it better or worse? To me, it's clear, it's much worse. But I would like to stimulate a reflection also on this. I have another point, another suggestion, and then a final series of questions very briefly to each of you. What are, in your views, the main fields where citizens have to be helped to understand that Europe is part of the solution, is not part of the problem? Where? If you were in the condition to have the power of communicate, to reach out to the citizens, what are the fields, what are the sectors where you would persuade those that are still reluctant that Europe is the solution? Is the foreign policy? Is the common European security policy? Is the strategy to create, and how, jobs and more growth? Is the new strategy to promote infrastructure? Is that European common energy security strategy? Where is the most, or are the most important areas that could attract citizens? And finally, can you explain to me and to all the audience, what is your opinion about a question that is very often asked? Why we Europeans, including the founding fathers of Europe, including we Italians, are skeptical about European Union, while those who aspire to become one day members are so enthusiastic to become members of Union? It is because they did not understand yet what Europe implications are, or because we run the risk to take for granted all what we have achieved, and we are not happy with that because we are not explained in full what is the importance, the added value of Europe. So these are some areas, some open questions where I would attract the attention, to draw the attention of our speakers. I would start on my right from Tanja Fajon, member of European Parliament, Slovenian member. What is, in your experience, which is not a new experience, because I think you are member since the beginning of the current legislature, and now you have already 4 years as member of European Parliament. What is your opinion about the new role of the European Parliament to try to reconnect with European citizens? Please,
Yeah.
honorable member.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is that working, yeah? Yeah. You raised many very relevant, I would say, and very important topics where Europe stands today and what are the open issues coming into the year of European elections, the role of European Parliament, the crisis in Europe, the dissatisfaction of European citizens, and the role of European citizens in general. I would give you first my view of the situation in Europe. We all know that the crisis, economic and financial, had caused severe difficulties in the societies. We have a huge democratic deficit. We have a problem with moral and social values in Europe. Our citizens are less and less satisfied with the European integration, but the reason I see is more fear, because when you don't have job and when you don't have some clear vision what you will have to do in the future, where you will find a job, how you will survive, of course this is a great cause of concern. And in European Union, I think we, in the last few years, lost a lot of precious time because we didn't have clear mechanisms how to solve the economic and financial crisis. We have established the euro, the common currency, but we didn't have clear mechanism how to control and how to monitor this common European euro market. And what had happened was that in the years of solving this crisis, we were very inefficient and maybe very late. The European governments were tackling the crisis slow and rather late. And in this situation, we lost a lot of confidence among the citizens. We created millions of jobless people in Europe, and we created a young generation which is very highly educated, but not having any clear perspective for the future. We have states in Europe where every second young citizen is today without job. And this crisis caused as well, I would say, a very big social and moral crisis in Europe. The values which we established in Europe are today very much threatened. For me personally, Europe is still an example of peace and stability, the integration as such. You said rightly that we all most probably agree that we need European integration and that we need Europe, we need solidarity, we need peace, we need stability. But how to connect that project back with the citizens? The results are showing us, or the old, I would say, the Vox Populi, or the questionnaires we are putting to the citizens, show us that today is almost 60% of Europeans who don't believe in integration anymore. This is an extremely worrying data. And how to now connect back this European project to our citizens? I think these elections are at a crucial point for the future of Europe, because we not only that we are solving the economic and financial crisis, and we already see some, I would say, ends or lights at the end of the tunnel of this crisis, but we are as well, I would say, in a break point how to see our institutional and political future of European Union. But first we have to resolve the economic crisis. And we have to bring citizens who lost the confidence back to the center, to the focus of our politics. So recently I made some experiment in Slovenia, and I asked authors of different generations, 7 different generations, not politicians, to write how do they see European Union in 10 years from now on and the role of Slovenia. They all agree that we need this integration for different reasons today, because we are living in a globalized world. The economies are bypassing us left and right, and the balance of power is shifting away from Europe to Middle East, to United States. And not a single country in Europe can act on its own. Not a small Slovenia, not a big Germany. To be strong in this globalized world, we have to be united. But the one common denominator these authors had is that the European Union became a project of political elites, too far away from the hearts of the citizens. And you mentioned as well the Commission is having meetings behind the closed doors. In the last several years, many people would agree that the politics has been made behind the closed door. People didn't feel that they are part of the process. The process itself hasn't been transparent enough. The decisions had been too far from the citizens, and they suddenly felt they are not part of the process anymore. And how now we can regain this confidence back in the time of crisis, in the time of high jobless rate in Europe, it is an extremely difficult task. And it is a perfect platform for nationalism, for populism, for an extreme right, and this is happening in Europe. And I hope that in the months to come now to the European elections, we will manage with proper politics, with bringing back the attention of peace, stability, solidarity, helping each other, human rights. This is, to me, how to convince citizens. We established the most modern part of the world in Europe just with the respect of human values. And this is something we have to bring back into the first row, to understand that it's peace, stability, it's human values, it's respect of every citizen's, each citizen, and dignity of life. And we have to assure that all those people in Europe who are today marginalized or are part of minorities or poverty, that we have to assure them some dignity in life. I would say that Europe is still the most rich continent. But what we created in the past is that we have a very wealthy part of society. And on the other hand, many people who are on the margins, very poor. So a lot of poverty in Europe. And in the middle class, it's getting more empty. So we have to redistribute this wealthiness again in the equal basis. If we will not discuss with citizens what kind of Europe we want in the future, and most probably it will not be the same European Union again after the crisis, to redefine which are the common interests we can work together, then I am afraid that in May, people will come to vote out of protest, or they will simply stay at home and not come to vote. So we risk that a lot of nationalists or a lot of some populists or extreme right members of parliament will come in the new European Parliament, and that can tremendously change the balance of power in Europe, and in the Commission and in the Council, because all these institutions will change. So I hope for Slovenia, for my country, we had in 2004 great enthusiasm for the European integration. And still today, I would say we are among those nations where we have a great awareness of European institutions, of the work of European institutions, and we are still very much in favor of integration. We don't have this very dangerous Euroscepticism. And I am hopeful that it will not happen in this country, because we are a very small country. And we are enjoying these freedoms of movement. You mentioned, I think for me this is one of very tangible things people can understand. That you can today travel without borders, that you have a chance to go to study abroad, that you have a chance to search for social, health, job opportunities in other countries. This is all Europe, different in its own diversity, culture, but extremely rich. And on this we have to build our future integration. So maybe this is for...
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Fayon, for what you said. I think what you said is also to highlight as one of, if not the main point where Europe can make the difference on reconnecting citizens, a new perspective on protecting and promoting human rights. I'm very much in agreement with what you said. Unfortunately, you know, Europe has been so far unable to be a real protagonist outside European borders of human rights. For example, we tried to be within the borders and not perfectly, not in full, but when we talk about horrible crises like Syria or crises like Somalia or the refugees in the Horn, unfortunately, we see Europe completely irrelevant in protecting human rights. Coming to the newcomer to the European Parliament from Honorable Fayon, Honorable Stier came to the European Parliament only when Croatia became the member of European Union and brought its fresh pro-European perspective to the European institution. How do you see from the perspective of a country I remember very well as Commissioner for Justice and Home Affairs, the very first phase of negotiations with your country? You will remember at the time you were advisor with the Prime Minister in the government of Croatia. You will remember how enthusiastic was from the very beginning the cooperation of Croatians in the perspective to become soon, and you succeeded, full member. Is that enthusiasm still there?
Well, the very short answer will be not really, but but I guess we should go a little bit deeper into that just to explain why and why it's not that bad either. And definitely we do remember the enthusiasm we had at the beginning of our European road, and of course we also value all the support we got from neighbors, from the Commission at that time, but especially from the Croatian citizens who really wanted to go that way, although it was from the very beginning very clear that it will not be an easy road. Actually, it was quite bumpy at some moments. But if you want to go even back to the origins of that European idea in Croatia, so unfortunately, of course, during the Cold War, we were part of Yugoslavia and of a communist country, so we were unable to be one of the founder members of the European Union like Italy. But when we wanted to go our independent way, it was very interesting to see the photos, and now we are actually coming to the 25th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall this year, actually, and also of the first free elections in Slovenia, in Croatia. I remember one photo from 1990, actually was the inauguration of the first democratic government in Croatia, and there was a big gathering at the main square, and people were waving Croatian and European flags. And I remember this also when I saw the people now in Ukraine protesting in the Maidan and trying to secure also a European future for their country. Unfortunately, as we are celebrating 25th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall, we also remember that this year is the 25th anniversary, for example, of the speech of Slobodan Milosevic in Gazimestan, when actually he announced his policy that brought just war and misery to Southeast Europe, and that was not answered in an appropriate way at that time by the European community. But of course, Europe learned a lesson from that and developed after that, of course, new instruments to have a more successful common foreign and security policy. We see part of that success and lessons learned now, for example, in the success of Cathy Ashton in brokering a deal between Belgrade and Pristina, just as an example. But at that time, of course, there was a disappointment, there was an anxiety. Over the time, however, the Croats remained pro-European, and they showed that at the referendum. But what are they expecting now? Well, what they are expecting is pretty much what many other citizens in Europe, and that is, how is the European Union going to answer to the problems of the youth unemployment? And Tanya already mentioned this. And this is something that we also need to do our utmost as members of the European Parliament to explain what the EU is doing, what can do. And at the end of the day, also to open up some issues that go even farther than just explaining the mechanism as the youth guarantee, or of what we are doing for the reindustrialization of Europe, or the digital economy in order to create new jobs, especially for our young citizens. So those are issues we can explain. But at the end of the day, we need to also open the issue that, look, citizens in the original member states of the European Union, yes, we sense there is, and Tanya also mentioned the percentage that are experiencing some disappointment with the project of the European integration. But when we see those who are outside the EU, as I mentioned in Ukraine, that are so eager to join, to have a European perspective, that is something that we should take into account. When we see not just people in Ukraine trying to have a European perspective for their country, but when we see ordinary people trying to individually get into the EU just to have a European perspective for their own. I'm a MEP from Croatia, but I was born in Buenos Aires. There's a huge Croatian, it's a huge Slovenian, and it's an even much larger Italian community there. So Europe and people from Europe used to go to find a future there in the past. Now we see a lot of people who are still wanting to come to have their European future in the European Union. And that is a reassurance that the European Union and the European idea is still a very forceful, actually, a very attractive idea for progress. But of course, when we were speaking about those times when people were going overseas to the Americas, the population of the European Union, of the current European Union at that time, was 15% of the global population. Today we are just 7%. And we produce just 25% of the global economy, but the European citizens consume 50% of all the social transactions, of the social benefits that are spent in the world. So here is a huge issue, of course, of competitiveness. You see the disbalance of creating just 25% of the global economy, but consuming 50% of all the social benefits. That is, of course, because of our European social model. We are proud of that, but we are having a problem in financing that. And the real question, in my view, is how to explain to our citizens that we need to do the reforms, but keep the solidarity. So probably that will open up a debate for a new concept of solidarity in Europe. How to use better our resources just to do the reforms, increase competitiveness, but also keep a net of solidarity among our citizens. So for those who are in need, for those who were not successful, that they are not just left behind, but there is a net of solidarity. And here I see, as a Christian Democrat, that regardless of our partisan differences, we should probably put our resources into those natural generators of solidarity in the society. Right. And family is the first one. So pro-family policies, more pro-family policies, is part of the solution. And Europe here also has a very important part of its agenda for the future. So I think in explaining that, in explaining also, especially in times of crisis, that we should not be ashamed of talking about these issues. They are part also of our identity. When you see what issues are, binding us together, even if we come from Croatia, Slovenia, or Italy, we do have some common tradition and common values. So we should not be ashamed of mentioning that, and that is a basis also to create a new identity for our citizens, for them to be easier to affiliate also with the European Union and to see the European Union again as a force for progress. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Stier. You very rightly pointed out that job creation and families are two key policies that, if you want to reconnect to citizens, have to be promoted and implemented. But frankly speaking, it is clear what you said, but if I would answer to your question, how to achieve this very important goal to put as a very core business of Europe to citizens, job creation and families policies, unfortunately, there has been so far not a clear vision of how to achieve that is very important goal. We agree on the goal. The answer I mentioned just briefly is in the vision of one of the founding fathers. I cannot repeat better than how Alcide de Gasperi expressed his point of view 61 years ago, while presenting to the Italian Parliament his first government under his leadership. He said, a politician looks at the next elections. A statesman looks at the next generations. This is the point. If a government has a short-term vision because it wants to get votes in 4 years, never there will be a visionary policy for families, because a policy for families will be bearing fruits in 10 years when that government will be for sure no longer in office. And no government, and this is why de Gasperi felt at the end, because he wanted to keep that policy at the risk to fall. And he did, but he never gave up that idea. And this is why, thanks to the Gasperi era, there was the Italian boom in the 60s, exactly as the result of the Gasperi's idea in the 50s. This is the example. Are there, and I turn to my friend and former colleague, Ivo Weigel, former foreign minister, are there, Ivo, leaderships, political leadership in Europe that are now capable to look at the next generations and to implement comprehensive policies? Because, frankly speaking, a job creation policy is not created by law or by European directive. Is it possible to implement and to have such a vision? Please, Ivo, the floor is yours.
Yes, I was a diplomat, and you know the mentality of diplomats. I will avoid a direct answer to your question. Well, but I think and I feel, since I am the member of European Parliament and I am the most of the time engaged in the foreign political issues, that the lack of the leadership is one of the problems because, as you said, or as somebody else said recent days, who cares for European Union if we speak about serious problems around us and in same Europe. So it is an institutional problem, and I would say the institutions of European Union have been designed for good times, not for bad times. They were seriously proved now when the crisis came, and nobody expected this crisis, that it might be so heavy in it and so complicated in its consequences. I remember, Franco, I signed this wonderful European Constitution in Rome when you were the host of it. Out of it, I still have the pen, which with whom I signed it. You know, but obviously it was based upon the optimism that the things might go faster, that integration is wanted by everybody, and that Europe is at least generally homogeneous. Now, I think that one of the most obvious things in Europe for the time being is that Europe is not homogeneous in any respect. So it is with the enlargement, which of course I shouldn't say anything against the enlargement, we should proceed with enlargement. But with enlargement, the character of European Union has changed, not only in the economic terms, but also in the terms of historical, cultural, and religious, and all other terms. And we actually should instead of looking only for the answers which economists can offer to us, we should turn a little bit to deeper problems of European integration, how to integrate, how to build up European identity. And it is obvious also that European identity will be different of some other identities in the other parts of the world with whom we will compete on the economic field, on strategic field, on military, and some other, all kind of other fields. And I am, I am very often referring to our European cultural identity. I see here my friend Erhard Busek, and I will never end by repeating how I admired Austria for them sticking to their cultural identity. They put the culture on the top of the values upon which identity of the our small neighboring country is built upon. And I will never end repeating that we Slovenians are a part of the same culture. We should accept the same cultural identity. We should embrace it, and we should build upon the experience to look what the neighbor is doing and follow good example, good practice of it. And I was this afternoon, I mentioned to Italian ambassador before this round table, I am on the last couple of days under stress. You know why, you read some newspapers and you know what might be my special reason for my stress. And then I was watching the Sanremo on the Rai, and I was all of a sudden I got rid of my tension. I realized, we have splendid, wonderful neighbors who still smile. They have same problems. They have constitutional problems right now. New government. Who knows what Mr. Renzi can deliver? He's nice and young and sympathetic, and we hope that he will.
I'm optimistic.
And okay, I will be also. But what I wanted to say is, this attitude. Well, it's time for smiling. Let's smile. And it is time to be entertained. Let's entertain. We are able to show a little bit of human enthusiasm only when Tina Maze is winning and some other. But we are not showing the same enthusiasm for our artists, for our musicians, for our theater, for our other things which are not so strictly linked to the politics and which which, of course, don't enjoy any particular sympathy or attention in media. So we are creating a kind of climate which is where it is so difficult to come out with the positive ideas, with positive initiatives. We showed some human solidarity now when this calamity happened with the ice. So we showed that there is something in us still left, but not recognized, and we don't value it with the proper attention. I will turn more to your question, not to go too far away from it. I think we have still, you know, we will be now voting, as you said. We will have this indication. If you vote for this party, if you vote for me, you will vote for Guy Verhofstadt to become the president of the Commission. And if you vote for socialist, you have the offer of Mr. Schulz, Martin Schulz, and if you have vote for Democration, you have to wait a little bit.
Not yet decided.
You have to wait a little bit.
In Dublin, we will know.
Yeah. So, of course, I also feel that there will some time for Eurosceptic is coming. So they will use the chance, and I think it will not be excessive. And I already mentioned once when Tanya and me were sitting at the same panel, and she pointed on the right-wing Eurosceptic. Well, and I said at that time, and now I'm repeating, there are not only right-wing skeptics, there are more left-wing Eurosceptics in Europe at this particular moment. So I am also on the left side, but left for me, there are even Eurosceptical guys like in Italy, Cinque Stelle, and in Greece and some other countries. So it is not ideological phenomena. It is a mistrust in the European institutions. Now, I think that as a member of European Parliament, I feel a problem which was there these past years, but I don't really believe that it will be solved also in the next mandate, the problem of the competence between Commission, Parliament, and Council. There is no empathy in these relations. There are some provisions which everybody is trying to go around a little bit. The Parliament has not been given the power which was foreseen by the Lisbon Treaty. Take, for instance, the foreign politics, where I am member of the Committee for Foreign Affairs and Committee for Development and Subcommittee for Defense and Security. We have the High Representatives who is coming to our sessions of our Commission to report about her trips. And she is reporting us. I was in like Mongolia, and I visited Africa, and I was there and I was there. And there is so little substance of active politics there. What the hell did we do there, and what was our leverage on the solving of some problems? I don't like to be unjust to Lady Ashton, and I give her also recognition for her engagement in the Kosovo and Serbian issue. She invested a lot of energy in this. But I am definitely not happy with the deal struck in Kiev by the 3 foreign ministers who are there. Which mandate have these particular three ministers, you know, to speak on behalf of European community? Don't we have the institution of European Community? Don't we have the President of the Council? Don't have we the High Representative? If the High Representative is not high enough, then we should elect somebody who would be high enough. But there was definitely no political will and no consensus that we need a strong high representative who would be the one who would pick up the phone if somebody from White House is calling, or somebody from Beijing or Moscow. You know? So it is not about male chauvinism, but it is about the legitimacy and efficiency of the high position. So we cannot be taken seriously. And this lady, under Secretary of State, can speak on that way as she spoke about European Union if we cannot provide a unanimous, efficient, well-founded answer. We did not understand the crisis on the Middle East. We did not understand the so-called Arab Spring. We did not make any serious effort to understand what was going on in Syria. We had some outspoken European politicians who were screaming we should bomb Syria in order to solve the problem. And we did not ask ourselves the question how far the situation in Libya has been thought through. Don't accuse me, please, for the sympathy with Gaddafi. But, of course, what was happening after, we should have foreseen. We should have foreseen that there will be next crisis in Mali, and then next crisis in Central African Republic. And if we have discussions in European Parliament with the Secretary General of NATO, Rasmussen, I said to him, when he asked us to give higher contribution to the military budget, I said, well, but isn't it so that Europe should offer not only humanitarian aid, etc., when it is already too late, when the catastrophe is already here, but we should offer the knowledge which is hidden on our institutes, in our universities. I am glad when I come to Ljubljana, Mr. Burgles left now, but there are some guys of his statue in Slovenia, which I am happy to listen because they have knowledge. And all over Europe, there are people who have knowledge. And we don't ask them. We just go and bomb, or go and applaud to the others if they bomb, and we don't know what will happen tomorrow. So this is the problem of leadership. We have a weak leadership. I think I should stop here.
You have been very clear, Ivo, very, very clear. So before leaving the floor to the audience for 20 minutes of open question, be tough, you are authorized, no problems, and open questions, frank answers. I would say a word on what you said, Ivo, your very sad reflections about the wish that we all have to have the right to happiness, as he said in the American Constitution, is something that I very much agree with. It's not a legal principle, but the right to happiness would mean be optimistic and be ready to cooperate for the good, not just looking at disaster in the near future. This is a new spirit combined with concrete action that is badly needed. And maybe sometimes we Italians can be good on that, because even when we are close to the nightmare, Italians react. This is the point. Somebody criticizes my country and my compatriots, or the Italians. This is very wrong. You will know, during the worst period of European and Italian economic crisis, there was not a single day of general strike in Italy, not a single day of paralyzing public services, transport, aircraft, airport, not a single day. Why? Because the Italians know how to look at the future in a bit more optimistic way. Situation is not overcome. Problems are still there. But what you said is one element, one component also of the way how to communicate to the public. Because, dear friends, if everything is going wrong is because of Europe, how is possible to reconnect to citizens? Because the citizens will be persuaded that what is wrong is because of Europe, what is right is because of the merits of national government. And this is, frankly speaking, doesn't work. You touched upon another very important point, European foreign policy. I'll be on this very brief because I agree on what you said about the risk of irrelevance of European Union. But more than that, one of the points where, one of the topics and issues where we should try to draw the attention of European citizens is exactly how much European foreign policy and security are important for the good of citizens. Because what you said about Libya, I know perfectly what happens in Libya. We won the war and we are losing the peace. This is bluntly the sad reality. Being Italian, I know much better than many others. The tribal situation in Libya that risks to lead to the partition of the country in 2 or 3 areas or regions. I know. And this is why we should have predicted. I wouldn't say we should have tolerated the horrible crimes of Gaddafi's regime. I was one of the first partisans for NATO involvement, and I confirm that opinion as Italian foreign minister. But in meantime, we should have predicted how to stabilize the country immediately after the end of the military action. And this was the European responsibility. We cannot imagine NATO being the global cop, ready to intervene everywhere at every time. This is not NATO's job. This is European responsibility. This is our Mediterranean. This is our neighborhood. Libya is 50 miles from the Italian Sicily. It is not in Mongolia. It's here. Here. If I was speaking Italy, I would say it's here. It's a bit more distant from Slovenia, but it's not so far. So the other point is exactly this. We used to say, well, foreign policy is things for elites. Absolutely wrong. If the Sahel and Saharan region explodes, massive migration will go north. And the infiltration of extremists that are penetrating with jihadists, Mali or the Horn or Western Africa, very soon will reach Libya, will reach Algeria. And if Algeria, which is very fragile, would be in trouble, we Europeans, not only in the south, because I've been explaining to my northern colleagues in my capacity as foreign minister, don't be, I would say, be afraid of the risk of Africa exploding. Because Africa explodes, you will be affected, as Italy will be. Because all the massive flows of people, including extremists, that are now fighting in Syria, many of those people are Europeans. They hold European passports. What happens? When, not if, when they will return, will be at home in Germany, in Italy, in France. They are jihadists, very well trained to kill innocent people. This is our problem. This is European security. It's not things for conferences or abstract elites discussion. This is why we have to explain in that way, sometimes a bit frankly, a bit bluntly to the public opinion, when you say, well, Africa is very far, it's not our problem. Like migration, oh, migration is a problem for Lampedusa. No, 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 no. Lampedusa is the door of Europe. People that are entering Lampedusa are entering Europe. Very soon, we will find a majority of these people not in Italy. They will find people in Austria, Germany, even in Sweden. When I was Commissioner for Home Affairs, how many desperate Nigerian prostitutes we used to find in Sweden? They entered from the south in Italy and they came to Sweden or to Finland, because with the Schengen space, unfortunately, they can move. This is a problem for Europe as a whole. This is why I would add, as one of the topics for the European citizens' awareness, foreign policy and common security European policy. With that, there is food for thought. I open the floor for those that would like to ask questions to the speakers. Please don't be shy, absolutely. Introduce yourself, please. Please, let's indicate to which of the speakers you are asking and addressing your question.
I am Marian Krasnici. I'm coming from Pan-Europa, Kosovo. I have two questions. The first question goes to Mrs. Fayyam, because she used traveling very often to Pristina. Till the Kosovo is not recognized by 5 EU countries. And also considering the fact that we're still the last country with visa regime. How do you see the perspective of Kosovo, EU perspective and regional cooperation in terms of EU integration? The second question is for Mrs. Weigel. Professionally, I came from the culture, from the theater field. Do you think that European Commission must invest more money in common culture projects? Thank you very much.
Well, I would collect 3 questions, another one, and then the speakers will answer. Is there another question? Please. No other question? You are satisfied? Okay. Honorable Fayon,
Okay.
floor is yours.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your question. It's right, I am often traveling to Western Balkan as a rapporteur for visa liberalization for all countries of the Western Balkan. And I just this week came back from Pristina 2 days ago. Because as you rightly pointed out, Kosovo is still the only black dot, unfortunately, on the map of the Western Balkan countries that citizens still cannot travel freely. And I, again, this week experienced how difficult that is, because especially for the young generation and for people without money, they are living in a very closed area. And not only that, it's one of the most poor countries in Europe with a high jobless rate. And here I would say I see a big failure on one hand as well of the common European foreign politics when it comes to the enlargement and support to the countries of the Western Balkan. But another issue is visa liberalization for Kosovo, what you asked me. I was this week speaking a lot what we can still do in European Union to help Kosovo to enter visa-free regime as soon as possible. It is a long journey. It is a very difficult for Kosovo because still a lot of things has to be done when it comes to border security, when it comes to fight against corruption, fight against organized crime, to assure safe reintegration of people coming back to Kosovo. And I cannot say, I was asked 100 times from journalists and from citizens and from everyone in the country when we will finally enter visa-free regime. It is extremely difficult to say, but I would not connect it with non-recognition of Kosovo, because it is a very technical process. It is a fulfillment of many criteria, and Kosovo is doing that. Of course, at the end of the day is as well the question of a political decision inside the European Union and in the hands of the European governments. Here, I am afraid that we at the moment don't have enough political courage to go for another round of visa liberalization in the Western Balkan. And I can assure you that the Commission is doing everything, the Parliament is doing everything, but on the side of the European governments at the moment, there is no consensus. Still, that doesn't mean not to stop working, because this is the best argument we can have, that you are trying to meet all the necessary criteria, to do everything that we can argue why it's necessary. For me, it's very clear, because what is at stake today, everyone who has money, politicians, businessmen, and all criminals, everyone is already traveling. They are not in Kosovo. But those who are affected are normal citizens. And this we have to explain as well to our European governments, that it is about cooperation, it's about citizens, people-to-people contacts, it's about exchange, political, economic, cultural, and we have to push Kosovo in that regard. I hope we will achieve with the next Commission. With this one and with the present situation in Europe, we are not yet there. So I do hope. Now I was a rapporteur for Moldova as well. Just this week we agreed that Moldova will be the next country to enter visa-free regime. It's a very good signal as well, because especially in the light of crisis in Ukraine. And you would not believe how much people really want to see these European dreams, to travel to Europe. And this was extremely important. So I do hope Kosovo will be the next country on the agenda.
Thank you very much. Ivo, your question.
Well, I think it is never too few or never too much money if we spend for culture wherever. But the crisis now in almost all countries brought the politicians to the decisions to cut first the cultural expenses for culture. And there are very, very important national cultural institutions who have been simply shut down in all European countries. I won't speak now about the one country who really is the best situation as in comparison with the others. Germany has closed a hell of the symphonic orchestras and theaters, etc., etc. So we are doing the same things in Slovenia. I think it is wrong. It is extremely wrongdoing, and yes, cultural integration of Europe brings us together. If we learn from each other, poets and musicians and painters, and so we come closer to the essence of the nation. I will tell you one example. I remember several years ago, maybe at least 15 years ago or something like that, there was in the drama of Ljubljanska drama, there was a show from Kosovo, from Pristina, and everybody was wondering how come drama can afford to have this piece, from Pristina. Who will come? Who will watch it? There are no people who show interest. There are people who are selling the vegetables and fruits, and they are and Slovenians are identifying them as Kosovari. And then phenomena happened that the theater was sold out. There were people who were waiting on the street. There was a demonstrative need to show their cultural needs and cultural profile. So yes, the answer is yes, we should not forget the culture, And I hope that there will be somebody who will substitute Mrs. Doris Pack in European Parliament. She was the president of the Commission for Culture, very active, very vibrant. And I learned that she is not going to run for election. Maybe I could do it. Huh? So I really hope that this cultural dimension of Europe will be here. But I would just, allow me please, Franco, I will just add something to what I was saying before. As an orientation for European politics, I think Europe should be open to all neighbors. Europe should try to understand their cultures. Europe should continue where we stopped with cultural, with the dialogue of the cultures and religions. We proclaimed 1 year we had 1 year of the intercultural dialogue and then forget about it. So that is something which we should pursue and insist on. And at the end, I would say, we don't need another Cold War with Russia. I think we are on the wrong track if we see in Russia somebody who is almost our enemy. I think it is wrong. Russia is our neighbor. We should pursue our interests. We should, of course, be able to limit their hegemonial pretensions in adjacent region, but we should not open the dialogue in the terms of Cold War, and I am afraid we are close. We are close to it. So that's the point where we should stop.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ivo. We are closing our panel, but before that, I don't resist the temptation to reaffirm the importance of what you, Honorable Fayon, just said about visa-free regime. I was, during my term in Brussels, lucky enough to be the initiator of visa-free regime process for Western Balkans as Commissioner for Home Affairs and coordinator of the enlargement of Schengen space to the new member states of Europe. Believe me, I can tell you just one anecdote that gives the idea that I've never heard in my institutional life so emotioning stories like in the day when I was present at the opening of the borders between my country and your country at the Fernetti crossing point, where people were shot and there were old people crying, crossing the borders by walking freely. This is Europe. And when a small delegation of Serbians came to visit me at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Rome, in the very first day of the visa-free regime, it was the first day. They went to Rome, they went to Paris from Rome, and they went to Berlin. And this small delegation was accompanied from, at that time, the Deputy Prime Minister, and there was an old man, 79 years old. I will never, never forget. He said, crying, well, dear friends, I'm very grateful because I was free in the former Yugoslavia to move freely to get a course in the university or to go to the concert in Vienna. Then the democracy came and the borders were closed. Now, thanks to you, thanks to Europe, you as Europe, borders are again open. So that gives the idea that freedom of circulation, be it within the Schengen space or thanks to the visa-free regime, is, in my view, I would not exaggerate, the most important tangible message that Europe is there. The tangible message. When we have been talking at length about what is necessary to reconnect citizens, to say, well, thanks to Europe, people from Pristina will be ready to go freely to Rome whenever they would like, thanks to Europe. People from Chisinau, the same. This is Europe. There is nothing more tangible than the possibility to send a daughter to a training course freely, without paying, without queuing at the consulate to get a visa. This is Europe. So I reaffirm the key importance of the dossier. And also I agree with you, I note an European fatigue. I cannot tell you how I had to push to put on the table that dossier during my time it was in 2006, the initiation of that process. Now, more than at that time, I note, I feel the European fatigue. It is a missing opportunity for Europe. The fact that we close our doors. Of course, what you said is absolutely right. As Commissioner for Security, I said to all my colleagues around the table of the Council of Interior Ministers, dear friends, you are the ministers of Interior. You know better than me that criminals don't need a visa to commit a crime, to cross a border illegally. All those that are affected are honest people. Those that cannot move if they don't have a visa, but a criminal or people smuggling or trafficking drugs, they don't be asking a visa to the consulate, please. And so I was a bit pushy on the ministers of Interior, and at the end, they gave me a green light. Thank you very much for the panel.